One email. That's all it took. Not a confession, not a goodbye, just a normal message, sent hours before a murder that no one saw coming. When detectives finally opened that inbox, they realized the victim hadn't just sent an email. They had unknowingly left behind the first piece of evidence. And in some cases, the killer had no idea that a single click on the send button would eventually help expose the truth. Tonight, we're opening those final emails and the terrifying stories hidden behind them. Most murders leave behind fingerprints, DNA, or surveillance footage. But some leave something far more personal, a conversation frozen in time. Unlike phone calls that disappear into memory, emails remain exactly as they were written. Every word, every timestamp, every attachment becomes a permanent digital record. Investigators have learned that these messages can reveal fear, hidden conflicts, financial disputes, broken relationships, or warnings that only make sense after someone is gone. Sometimes the victim never realized they were in danger. Other times, they knew exactly who they were afraid of. The cases you're about to hear are all based on documented investigations where emails became an important part of understanding what happened before a killing. They don't always solve the mystery, but they often reveal something even more chilling. The victim was trying to tell someone the truth before it was too late. Our first story begins with a young woman who believed she was finally repairing her relationship with her mother. She had no idea those emails would become evidence in one of India's most infamous murder investigations. Case 1. The emails. That nobody understood. In March 2012, 24-year-old Sheila Bora decided to do something many people would consider impossible. After years of family conflict, misunderstandings, and emotional distance, she reached out to her mother through email. The messages weren't angry, they weren't threatening. In fact, they were surprisingly hopeful. Sheila wrote that many of the negative things she had believed while growing up were no longer the way she saw the situation. She wanted peace. She wanted honest conversations. She wanted the family to move forward instead of living in constant conflict. Over several days, the two exchanged multiple emails discussing the possibility of rebuilding their relationship. Investigators later recovered these exchanges during the criminal investigation. To anyone reading them at the time, the conversation looked like a fresh start. There was no obvious sign that anything terrible was about to happen. No threats, no panic, no desperate plea for help, just a daughter trying to reconnect with someone she hoped she could trust again. According to investigators, Sheila even suggested meeting in person in the near future. That meeting would happen, but it wouldn't end the way she expected. Roughly a month after those emails were exchanged, Sheila disappeared. Friends were told she had moved away. Others received messages claiming she wanted a new life and no longer wished to stay in contact. For years, many people believed exactly that. But investigators later alleged those messages had been sent after her death in an attempt to convince everyone she was still alive. As the investigation progressed, the earlier emails between Sheila and her mother took on an entirely different meaning. What had once appeared to be ordinary family conversations became crucial evidence for establishing the timeline leading up to the murder. Detectives carefully analyzed every timestamp, every sentence, every promise, every reply. They discovered that the emails documented a relationship that investigators believed was being repaired shortly before the alleged murder. Looking back, the most unsettling part wasn't what the emails said, it was what they didn't say. There was no indication that Sheila believed her life was in danger. She wasn't writing a farewell, she wasn't leaving instructions. She simply believed she was rebuilding trust. That innocence makes the emails even more heartbreaking. Today, because the person she believed she could finally reconcile with would later become the central figure in one of the country's most shocking homicide cases, and this wouldn't be the last time an ordinary digital message would become one of the most important clues in a murder investigation. In the next case, the final email wasn't about reconciliation, it was about fear. A woman warned someone that she didn't feel safe. Days later, she was dead for years. Sheila von Wiese Mack tried to convince herself that things would eventually get better. Friends knew she was struggling with a difficult relationship with her teenage daughter, Heather. Police had responded to numerous domestic incidents over the years, but like many parents, Sheila continued hoping the situation could still be repaired. Instead of telling the world what she was going through, she told a close friend through email. Those private messages would later become some of the most heartbreaking evidence in the entire investigation. Months before her death, Sheila described living in constant fear. One email explained that she could no longer continue living under the same roof because of the repeated arguments, theft, and unpredictable behavior. She admitted she was emotionally exhausted and felt trapped inside her own home. As the months passed, the emails became even more disturbing. After another violent confrontation, Sheila wrote that she was terrified of what might happen next. She explained that the violence had become so normal that she sometimes caught herself accepting it as part of everyday life. But one sentence stood out above everything else. "I'm really scared of what she may do next." At the time, her friend probably saw those words as the understandable fears of a worried mother. No one imagined they would soon become evidence in a murder investigation. In August 2014, Sheila traveled with her daughter to Bali, Indonesia, hoping the vacation might help repair their relationship. Instead, investigators say the trip had a very different purpose. According to court documents, Heather Mack had secretly arranged for her boyfriend, Tommy Schaefer, to fly to Bali without Sheila's knowledge. Authorities later alleged that the murder had been planned before he even arrived at the resort. Then came Sheila's final email. Only days before she was killed, she sent one last message to her longtime friend. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't written like a farewell. It contained only a few words. "I am more frightened than ever. I will keep in touch." She never sent another email. 4 days later, Sheila was found dead inside a suitcase at a luxury hotel in Bali. Investigators would later uncover text messages, digital communications, and other evidence that prosecutors said documented planning before the murder. The emails Sheila had sent months earlier suddenly took on a completely different meaning. They weren't simply complaints about family problems anymore. They were warnings. Warnings that nobody realized were pointing toward a tragedy that was only days away. Looking back, the most chilling part of the entire case isn't the crime itself. It's knowing that Sheila had already put her fear into writing. She had documented it. She had shared it. She had reached out to someone she trusted. But like so many victims, she couldn't know that her final email would eventually become one of the strongest pieces of evidence, showing investigators exactly how frightened she had been before her life came to a violent end. And this wasn't the only case where an inbox preserved a victim's final warning. In the next story, the last email wasn't sent to a friend. It was sent because someone believed they had uncovered a dangerous secret. A secret that, according to investigators, may have placed them directly in the path of a killer. Not every final email contains fear. Some don't mention danger at all. They talk about ordinary plans, a meeting next week, a phone call later that evening, a promise to catch up soon. And that's exactly what makes them so haunting, because when investigators read those messages after a murder, they aren't just looking at evidence, they're looking at the final normal moments of someone's life. One case shows just how deceptive those final emails can be. Case 3. The business partner, who never came home. In June 2010, California entrepreneur Christopher Smith disappeared without warning. To friends and family, it didn't immediately seem suspicious. Soon after he vanished, emails began arriving from his account. The messages claimed he had decided to leave everything behind. He supposedly wanted to travel. He needed time away from work. He didn't want anyone searching for him. For a while, some people believed it. After all, the emails came directly from Christopher's own account. Who else could have written them? But investigators noticed something strange. The writing style felt different. The explanations became increasingly inconsistent. And despite claiming he had voluntarily disappeared, nobody could verify where he actually was. As detectives dug deeper into the case, they reached a chilling conclusion. According to prosecutors, Christopher had already been killed. The emails weren't being written by him at all. Authorities alleged that his business partner, Daniel Tae-hoon Shin, had continued sending messages from Christopher's email account in an effort to convince everyone that he was still alive and had simply chosen to disappear. Investigators said the deception delayed suspicion, while financial motives and other evidence were uncovered. Imagine receiving an email from someone, believing they're alive, replying to them, never realizing the person you're talking to has already been murdered. That possibility transformed every message in the investigation. Digital forensic experts examined login records, timelines, and communication patterns. Each email became another piece of the puzzle. Instead of proving Christopher had left voluntarily, the emails eventually helped investigators argue that someone had deliberately created the illusion that he was still alive. The case revealed something investigators now encounter more often than ever before. A person's digital identity doesn't necessarily die when they do. Emails, text, messages, social media accounts, all of them can be manipulated to create a false timeline. Sometimes, the most convincing evidence isn't evidence at all. It's a carefully constructed illusion. And that realization has changed the way homicide investigators examine every digital communication after a suspicious death. Because today, detectives ask a question they rarely considered years ago. Was the victim really the one who sent that message? Sometimes the answer is no, and when that happens, an ordinary email stops being a conversation. It becomes part of the crime itself. But the next case is even more disturbing, because the victim's final email wasn't sent to hide the truth. It was sent because they believed someone needed to know it only. Later would investigators realize that the warning had arrived just a little too late.